It is 10:07 at WPSL 1590. Talk to the Treasure Coast 707 in Las Vegas, where Mr. Mike King, he's doing a little convalescing, but he's getting a little better. And then, of course, Charles Moscowitz, who's probably getting the effects of Hurricane Nate up and around Beantown. Hi, guys. How you doing?
Hi. Good morning.
How are things going, Michael?
Good. It's good. Stocks are making new all-time highs.
Uh-huh.
Just touched up there. Everything is good with the stock market.
Yeah, it just seems like it just continues to grow and grow. It's amazing, what's happened since the first of the year.
Yeah, it's solid, and the volatility remains low, so excesses are at a minimum.
That's good. That's
so it probably has a way to go.
That's great. Well, just looking at some of the consumer sentiment, of course, now what I thought was very interesting is that the home improvement stores are running ads for employees, especially employees who may have lost their homes in Hurricane Irma. This is in South Florida. So I'd be anxious to see if they were doing the same thing in Texas. And, when we get Timmy back on, we can ask him about that. It's a very interesting advertising campaign. And they're saying, that if you lost your home, you've got a job at Lowe's. So I thought, wow, that's very interesting that they're doing that. Because, I'll bet, with all the hurricane stuff that's been going on, some of the people maybe not lost their jobs, but maybe couldn't get to their jobs.
No doubt.
Yeah, that was the big deal on the unemployment numbers on Friday.
I'll bet, sure.
Yeah. They were expecting whatever they were expecting, up 100,000 or so, and they came in minus 33,000. And they broke it down into people who could not get to work versus people who were not working.
Well, Charles, I'm amazed that you have the nerve to go on the air after the Boston Red Sox lost last night.
Oh, yeah. It was obvious that the last series of the season was against the Astros, and they just killed us. And so, I'm not the least bit surprised.
Well, you still have the Patriots.
Yeah.
Well, the Bruins have started. I can't believe they're playing hockey in early October, but yeah, they are.
Yeah.
Oh well. Yeah. So, Charles, tell us a little bit about what have you guys going in that newsletter that we need to know about.
Well,
great.
It's pretty comprehensive. I mean, Mike does that whole market lab listings of everything that is due for the week, earnings, meetings, etc. And and then of course there's the section in the letter that has to do with the coming events. The fundamentals. Mike has a whole list of fundamental stocks that have done, really well over the past 8 or 10 months. So the letter is informative. We also do the front page narrative about, what the market looks like, what the influences have been and seem to be. And then, of course, we have the daily note that goes out Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. No real point to doing one on Friday when the letter comes out on Sunday. So, that's it's solid, and the performance is really solid. The options account is up about 150% year to date, and the big account, which is both stocks and options, has taken roughly 54,000 in profits year to date. That's pretty substantial when when you get down to the numbers.
Yeah, I would say so. You are correct. By the way, how's my Weinstein movie stock doing?
Yeah. It's amazing. The one thing that they talked about him in the very early, in the beginning of all of this unraveling, somebody made the comment, one of the entertainment shows made the comment that, the number of people who have thanked Harvey Weinstein when he's, when they've won Oscars and Emmys and, all the awards is, it's phenomenal. It's like, when the football teams announce both sides when the game is just beginning, and each of the players says, their name and what school they went to. This thing with the Oscars is the same as, the number of people who are playing professional football, and when they go through that announcing themselves, it's just amazing how many people say the U, which is Miami, or Florida State, or, it's really prevalent. You can't listen to any of these games without hearing a couple of guys who have come from those big Florida schools, to play. And so that's kind of the same thing with Weinstein. I'm not, saying that what happened shouldn't be handled the way it is. Can you imagine Thanksgiving when the two brothers sit down at the table? The one who caused the problems and the one who fired him.
Yeah, well, it may not be Thanksgiving this year. It's very funny, though. Turning the clock back to when when I left ESPN and we started Fox. And there used to be some amazing conversations around the lunch truck. We used to have a Roach coach come in, and we're talking the Barry Dillers of the world, just all standing around. But even back then, which was 1986, his name came up several times. And it was like, and I think it was before the group was together, but, just him. And there were questions back in the 80s. You have to wonder. It's like, my God, this has been going on forever, and no one said anything, Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
But that's, you guys know. Obviously, Mike, you're right in the center of the entertainment industry in Vegas.
Yeah.
It's that has been a classic conversation in the entertainment world forever. It just has been. And it goes all the way back to the Rat Pack. Actually, before that. Yeah, truly amazing. Just absolutely.
It's like
amazing.
It's like the NCAA stuff that everybody knew was going on, but they finally got tired of hearing about it.
Yeah.
Tossed Rick Pitino and.
Well, that's just the tip of the iceberg. It's again going back to '86 when I was doing UNLV. And there were whispers all over the place about our program, which finally did go on probation. But it just it's been around. As long as there's big shoe companies and big equipment companies like your Under Armours, your Nikes, and things like that, that's going to happen. It just is. Adidas. And this was an Adidas deal. So turning the clock back again. To '86, Sonny Vaccaro, the big Adidas guy, was putting on tournaments, and all of a sudden these kids magically appeared at these things. Yeah, it's amazing. Oh boy, yeah, sports and entertainment, it's all kind of melding in together. Almost feel like we're running an adult daycare center or something. Oh no, that line's already been used.
Well, your wine is going to get more expensive, it looks like.
Oh, man. That's such a beautiful area of the country. Yeah, Nancy Pelosi has got to be sweating it because, I mean, she and her husband own half of Napa, boy. Yeah, it's just
it's really a mess.
Yeah, well, and then the one that erupted in Anaheim,
Oh, yeah.
Anaheim Hills, and that was going back again to the early '80s, mid '80s. That was all brand new development up in those foothills. A lot of ex-ball players lived up there, as a matter of fact. So, yeah, it's. Well, you were out there. I mean, you understand the Santa Ana winds once they start.
Yeah.
All hell breaks loose, and it's that time of year. It's awful. It is awful. Not a good time to be in California at all.
Yeah, not north or south.
Yeah. So, and what was it, Jerry? I forget. Something else that Jerry Brown did the end of last week, and I was just sitting there going, you've got to be kidding. I know. And this is something that you guys can comment on. Jerry Brown is talking about robotics taking jobs, which you guys have talked about for years, that automation is going to. He wants to charge each robot
A tax.
income tax. The robots need to pay income taxes. Okay.
Unbelievable.
It's I know. You can't make this stuff up. You just can't make this stuff up. It's amazing. Mike's state of Nevada is probably going to quintuple in size when everybody leaves California. It's amazing.
Yeah, and there's a lot of employment opportunity there. They've been talking about it. They've been talking about the states that would be most hurt under the current proposed tax basis, and I guess the biggest two issues are the taxes that you pay if, for example, you work in New York. You pay the federal, you pay the state, and those have always been deductible. And if they're talking about taking away that, all of a sudden, the guy who makes $200,000 or the family that makes $200,000, and pays the federal tax at whatever rate and pays the state tax, and if you live in New York City, the city tax.
Right.
I mean, those numbers add up, pretty significantly. I was watching on CNBC Kramer, who I just cannot tolerate, talking about how he, between his city, state, and federal tax, pays roughly 51%.
Whoa.
And 51, so he's basically, until July 4th, he's, working for somebody else.
Yeah. Wow. Well,
and then
yeah.
They haven't done it yet, but there's still always talk about the interest deduction on your mortgage. I mean, that's pretty substantial, and that's kind of a very progressive tax from the standpoint of who gets stuck with it. There are a lot of people who, the taxes on that are pretty extreme. The cost of the home ownership and what you get back. I mean, you think about it, that is almost the point where people use their homes and their mortgages as a way to shelter their income. So, that goes up pretty substantially. But it would be nice to be able to fill out your taxes on a postcard.
Yeah, yeah.
And send them in.
Oh, yeah. No, it sounds great. It really sounds great. But, I don't think it's quite that simple. And there's all sorts of debates, that seem to be popping back up again about, the fair tax or the consumption tax, and that everybody pays that. And I don't know,
That is a particularly regressive tax because, it hurts the lowest rung of the economy.
Yeah, and the Democrats have complained about that for years. Yeah.
I mean, it's like it's like increasing a gas tax, where a guy who's not making a lot of money, has to drive, 30 miles a day, and in order to do that, I mean, every time you hear about it, there are people talking about a 50-cent tax a gallon for that, and the bottom line is the people that it hurts are the people who can least afford it.
Yeah, well, that's been the common complaint for a long, long time, and but do you?
By the way, the market is selling off here. The Dow was up almost 80. It's now up just a shade over 30. The S&P 500 was up almost $8.50. Is now up only $3. I mean,
didn't it make a new all-time high this morning?
It did make a new all-time high this morning.
Yeah.
But I see some of the FANG stocks, which are still up slightly, but the NASDAQ just turned negative. From up whatever it was up, it's now down 72 cents. The dollar is a little weaker. The gold is higher. The oil is higher. So all of the internationals, look a little strong. And the reason that the market is up as substantially as it is, Walmart, who yesterday said that they're going to put a new system in for returns, where you'll be able to walk into the front of the store, whether you bought it in the store or you ordered it online. There'll be a self-service kiosk, and they say it'll take 45 seconds. That's what their aim is, down from what is currently about 5 minutes, to go through the return. And they also announced a large buyback, which is something I wanted to discuss anyway. Walmart is up 3 1/4, so that's all of the Dow.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, well,
you're long 7 positions and short 1. So do you want to take any profits? You're long a UTX, a CTL.
Well, the UTX we've written against. As far as I'm concerned, the best place for UTX to close would be roughly 117. It's 117.77 right now, because the 117s that we wrote for around $1 would be worthless, and the 115s that we own would be worth, right around $2.
Good.
So that's somewhat interesting. We have a lot of positions on right now that
yes.
That they're the second half of the position, and I'll explain that when.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you about that.
Yeah.
Explain that for us.
When we go into a position, we have 2 rules. One is a 50% down rule, which says that if your position goes down 50%, you have to sell, and there's 100%.
Alex Romanov.
And then there's
hang on, Alex.
100% up rule, which means if something goes up 100%, you have to sell half, which essentially takes all of your money off the table. Well, I paid 86 cents for the UTX calls that are when they hit $1.72, we had to sell half, so we have no money in the trade whatsoever, and they're currently trading at $3.42. And so several of our positions are like that. Same thing with the Apple. We own a small position in the Apple 155 calls. They're selling for $2 and change. We paid only $1 and change for them, and sold half of them when it hit up. I didn't wait for 100%. I sold it up about 80%. So we have these positions, and we have a record of what the funds in use were in order to carry those positions. But in fact, the number is zero on absolutely every one of these, that the first 50% was liquidated on that 100% up rule.
Good job. You've done a great job. Everybody is way ahead. And I want to introduce Alex Romanoff, the president of iSign Media. He's
Don Jackler.
And Don Jackler, also involved with iSign. So thank you, Charles, for the great work you're doing. And go ahead, Alex, give us a little discussion on your company.
Well, thank you, Mike, and good morning, everyone. iSign Media has been in business about 10 years, been public almost 9 years, 8 years for sure, on the Canadian TSX Venture Exchange market, and it's sold on the over-the-counter OTC in New York. Our strength is we are a SaaS solution, software as a service solution company. We develop innovative software solutions that bring both hardware, software products to the market. One of these is a product called the Smart Antenna, which will, both in Bluetooth and Wi-Fi mode, identify mobile devices that come within 300 feet, and that can be adjusted downwards, and they will push a message to that device. Could be an invitation to take part in a sale, could be a dinner kind of offer, might be a message that has to do with some kind of urgency or situation that is happening in the locales where the antennas are broadcasting in proximity. All of this is done privately. No apps are required. This is a push solution on the Bluetooth, and it is a Wi-Fi, call it a push. It's prompted on the browser where people are used to going to Wi-Fi sites and finding what they need on their devices. Our other product, most recently, that we have received a patent pending for, is a product called the push sensor. And the push sensor is a similar kind of process whereby we will push a message directly to the screen of any device that comes within proximity of our push sensors. So you could be an owner of an Apple or an Android phone, and once you get into the proximity of a push sensor, it'll push a message directly to your screen. So whether you're capable or not capable, know how to do it or don't know how to do it, the message will arrive on your mobile device, and it'll stay there until you remove it. So the push sensor is a very effective and efficient way to message to mobile devices. The messaging is very rich media. We can push posters, tabs, video, music, just about anything that's required to be pushed. Our third product is most recent. It's been out for a month or so. It's been in development for several years, and it's called SAM. SAM is a security alert messaging solution that would allow anybody in any location to register on SAM. By that I mean that you can register in something as small as a small schoolhouse, could be as large as a mall, could be even bigger as an airport, and anybody entering that location registered on SAM would be specifically alerted that there is an event that could be threatening to your life, could be threatening to your assets or whatever, and how to avoid it. So SAM would immediately post a message on your device by any means that you register. So the posting of the message can come to you on telephone, SMS, internet. You can put in, if you like, Twitter, whatever you're using, and instantaneously those messages would also be displayed on all the digital signage in that particular location that's threatened, so that there's absolutely as much visibility to what the threat is, both on your phone and on digital signage. We will also connect with your PC and your iPad if you're sitting at an airport using either one of those. So there's very, very little chance that someone may not get that message in any location. It would give them instructions, give the people instructions to run in a specific direction, not panic, take it easy. It's a fire, it's a shooting, it's a bomb threat. Information helps the efficiency of a crowd to move without harming themselves. So for a perfect example, had Sam been registered for the concert in Vegas the last week or so, all those phones that were brought to the concert, all those phones would have received a message that there is a shooter. This is a shooter. Please take cover. Also, all the digital signage, whichever network was activated on SAM, would also broadcast information regarding the shooting at the concert. So both the people at the concert and people surrounding the concert would all know exactly what's going on. As additional information is discovered, it can be posted as well. I think that SAM would have, could have, might have mitigated some of the deaths. I think that SAM might have expedited some of the reaction. And I certainly think SAM might have given some people a little bit of comfort in knowing what it is that they're avoiding so that they're not running helter-skelter in all directions. Had we saved...
Okay, so that sounds great, Alex, and I can understand that. But do you have any privacy problems with the other applications, the mall or the store with the sale? I mean, how do you get around that?
Good question, Charles. I was just going to ask that, yes.
I believe I might have covered that very quickly by saying that we are privacy respective. Our smart antenna and our push sensor, neither of those require personal information. In the case of the smart antenna, we would push the message directly to your device. So we don't know your name, we don't know your phone number, we don't know your email address. Frankly, we don't care. What we care about is the traffic and the audience that comes into proximity. And we would push messages, various messages. Could be for food, could be for clothing, could be for hardware. The result would be data collected that is preferential. In other words, that day we got more positive responses to the hardware ads than any of the 2 or 3 others. So the next day, the push becomes a predictive push where you actually plan and say, okay, we will push hardware today because that seems to be the most popular. Each day, those steps will increase an enterprise's return on investment. The ROI goes up when you're selling or pushing messages that are well received and wanted by your audience. So yes, they're fully private.
It kind of qualifies. when you think about being a salesman of any kind, uh, the best salesmen know how to qualify the buyers, and it sounds like this does pretty much the same thing.
Well, gentlemen, just to bring this to a little more focus for you, when you walk into a mall, the window displays of every store cost a lot of money. They change them frequently. The whole idea is to attract your attention in proximity and get you into the store. This is done by posters and digital signage, etc. The difference with our product is that we actually identify the devices that are in proximity, how many devices, how long they spend, what their dwell time is, and which messages were sent out and which messages were accepted, rejected, or ignored. And in the end, we can also measure redemption. In other words, how many were actually redeemed at that moment. So it is a good, rich, big data response on a daily basis and could average anywhere from 3,000 to 5,000 devices per antenna, depending on your crowd. We have some product in use in 3 airports, Denver, John Wayne, and the third one, Palm Springs Airport. The audience there is over 100 million people per year. That is a fantastic flow of potential receptors of ads, and particularly in an airport where people tend to, the majority of time, have more time to sit down, relax while they're waiting for their flight. And if you've been to an airport recently, you'll see that 9 out of 10 people are walking around staring at their devices. So it is the best place in the world to be pushing ads for the commerce that's in the airport or brand names and commerce that's outside the airport. And that's what we do with our partner, Rich Media Technologies.
Yeah,
Alex,
I know on my...
In reference to SAM, are there any other products similar to SAM on the market today? And it seems like SAM should be at every airport, every school, every government agency, every building to protect people.
Well, we're trying to do that as quickly as we can, of course, allowing our assets. And yes, we are presenting SAM to a much greater variety than I've discussed here. I will be attending in Denver Airport later this month to present and demonstrate SAM and our smart antennas to the security team at Denver Airport, which is deemed to be a home security site. That's where the government of the United States, the officials would fly to if there's any kind of a nuclear threat, because all of the bunkers, etc., are in those mountains near Denver. So it's a security site. We'll be attending there. We'll be demonstrating the product to the security, to the airport, and TSA.
Are there any products like SAM on the market today, or are we the only company that can do security and messaging?
Currently, we're the only company that can do that. Amber Alert has existed for possibly up to 20 years, and I have samples of Amber Alert where they claim that there will be a tornado at 6 a.m. today, but the message doesn't come across my TV screen until 8:30, so in the morning. So it's not timely, it's not well regulated, it's cumbersome, it's old, and it does not focus on devices.
Yeah, I know on the Amber Alert on my iPhone, when I was originally setting it up, it specifically asks me if I want emergency notifications. On the other hand, I also have an app on the phone called retail me not. And retail me not is if I'm driving from my home and I get within, I don't know, 500 yards of the Hanover Mall, I start to get messages on my phone telling me who in the Hanover Mall is having a sale and, what the terms of the sale are. So I find that sometimes very helpful and sometimes very annoying. And so, that was why my question about privacy. I mean, the thing is, or instead of putting it that way, let me ask you, do normal message rates apply to these pushed messages? In other words, am I really paying for it if I get a lot of them?
Don, there's absolutely no cost to our messaging because it's done by our solution, which is machine to machine. In other words, our antenna identifies your device, identifies the MAC address of your device that you yourself wouldn't even know, particularly the Bluetooth MAC address, because that's not even registered by the cell providers. So it's extremely private. It's also unhackable because it's a distance of only 300 feet between the antenna and your device. Nobody would have the time to hack that, and if they did, they'd only catch some coupons. There's nothing else that they could possibly derive from hacking that. So it's secure, it's private, and a lot of time is wasted on this request for privacy. When you're getting a message from the mall that's 500 feet away from you as you drive home, at some point somewhere, you probably did have to submit your information that you wanted this messaging.
Right.
So if
on
you
the app,
agreed to do, yeah, well, that's the problem with apps. Apps are not private. So anybody using iBeacons, etc., should know that. If you want to be private, then don't use apps. In our case, we give you the choice. In the case of Sam, it can be on an app, but that's your choice. And it can actually be transferable from app to app to app. So maybe you have a favorite climate app that you use. You can attach Sam to that on your phone. It doesn't need to have its own app, but we will present that. Sam does require you to register your contact information. Otherwise, you're not going to get the message. So that's a choice that a person has to make.
Alex, I've got a question for you too on going back to the Las Vegas incident. How would Sam know if we had the Sam alert system there? If there were one or two shooters, how would that system understand that?
That's the SAM system is activated by whatever security center or security team or security group is taking care of that particular concert. So SAM is a methodology of having the attendees registered to receive emergency messaging, but the emergency messaging is submitted by whoever is in charge of security. And that has nothing to do with SAM. SAM is the enabler. We are not in charge of the security. So we would not know how many shooters there are, but we would forward the message that's fed into SAM.
Gotcha. Okay.
So that's how that works.
Now, coming from a broadcaster side, we obviously have EAS messages that, it's all regulated by the Federal Communications Commission.
Yes.
And you mentioned Amber Alert, and Amber Alerts are part of the EAS system. Don't ask me why, but they are. And so how would would you guys at iMedia be in a position to take this to the FCC and say this could be an integral part of the EAS systems for the United States?
Yes, sir. First of all, number one, the EAS and Amber Alert are governmental alerts. Okay, they're
Yes.
provided to you by the government.
Yes, yeah, we have special boxes for those. Yes.
Yes, sir. And so the government decides what kind of thing they should alert you of. The government would never know about the shooting in Vegas. Okay, that's a localized thing, and that is the beauty of SAM because it is localized. So it can be picked by a mall, an enterprise, a school, a specific business. It can be picked by anywhere where the public attends, airports. So they would choose and say, we are protected by SAM. And that will cover anybody that is in that location should there be a disaster. I'll give you a perfect example. In the case of a school, if kids go to the school with their phones are usually owned by their parents. So the school would announce that we are making SAM available at this school now for all of our students. That notification would be taken to the home, and the parents would agree to pay a fee. That fee would be $60 to $120 a year to be covered on SAM. $60 to $100 a year. It's not a lot of money. It's $5 to $10 a month per student. At the same time, the parents could register their phone so that if there is an incident at that school, SAM would immediately alert each student with instructions on what to do. SAM would also contact their parents, the police, the medical authorities, the fire department, and tactical SWAT teams, whatever is required, would all be instantly messaged and directed to that school. So it's not government. It's specific to locations. It's specific to what an enterprise wants to do.
What's the symbol for the stock, Alex?
In Canada,
the U.S.
In the U.S., ISD TF.
SF.
What is it again, guys?
ISD, S like Sam, F like Frank, in the United States.
Okay. Yeah. Otherwise, it's a Canadian stock. Other than that, right?
Correct. ISD is the Canadian symbol.
Gotcha.
On the Venture Exchange, Toronto Venture Exchange.
Right. Wow.
The SAM sounds like a marvelous device, and hopefully many governments would be interested in this device shortly, Alex.
Well, it has been introduced to all the high levels of government. There have been government officials involved in reviewing SAM, and now it's going through the presentation process. And that process depends on how fast governments roll. But we were quite surprised and pleased to get an invitation to come to Denver about 2 months after we installed our smart antennas in 3 airports. And they have been viewing the results. They have been viewing the ability to connect. And so now SAM and the smart antennas are of interest to them. And they can provide specific, localized messaging and alerts that neither Amber Alert or ESF can provide because they're universal. They're more for government use.
What about TSA, guys?
One of your priority posts.
I'm sorry, gentlemen. One at a time, please.
Yeah, the question from the studio.
One of your posts on priority post on your website that your reseller RMT has signed a 10-year deal or signed a deal with Reach Me TV
sure. Rich Media Technologies, our reseller, comes from the mobile phone business in airports. They used to run 8,000 or more payphones at airports. And, of course, those are on the way out now because they're not making enough money for the cost of the hardware maintenance, etc., and space that they take up at an airport. So they're being replaced. And Rich Media Technologies is replacing payphones with what they call a kiosk phone, which is free. You can make a call for free on their phones in airports, and the call is paid for by the digital sign that's embedded in this particular individual phone, which is promoting various brands. So advertisers are paying for your phone call. There are plenty of people that are running all kinds of content and advertisements in airports, and so they are signing up with Rich Media Technologies to be using their phones as a digital signage network. And one of these partners that Rich Media Technologies is involved in is Reach Me TV. They are a company that promotes both content and advertising. In other words, programs and snippets of programs. So the advertising is included, and they just pay a flat fee to each network that RMT has, each telephone network. And our antennas are used to promote that advertisement that's on the kiosk along the walls to people sitting down in various locations in the airport, and it'll go straight to their device. So it invites them to charge their phone. It invites them to use the phone if they want to make a long-distance call for free or any call for free. And it also promotes the various brands. Car rentals, can be promoting food, restaurants, etc. And it might be promoting a greater, larger national brand that once you get to your location, enjoy this or that beer or this or that beverage. So that's the benefit and use of these new networks of free payphones at airports.
Go ahead, Charles. Any other questions?
Yeah, how much stock is outstanding, Alex?
About 108 million shares.
Okay. All right. The chart's kind of interesting, but the volume is, at least on the U.S. shares, is not great, meaning not big numbers.
There aren't that many shares outstanding or in use in the States, but there will be because most of our clientele are fairly large enterprises. An airport can span out. There's about 350 major airports in the United States. And so far, for example, Reach Me TV has gone from 50 airports to 70. And if you've been to any airports, you'll find that most of the signage was brought to you by CNN, and that's now being replaced by Reach Me TV and by CBS. So, times change and things change at airports, and there's a new push to get these things done in a different way. RMT has also got business in Mexico with airports, government buildings, etc. For your information, Mexico recently changed its government. They're in that 100-day honeymoon phase, and RMT has been there, introduced itself to all of the government officials, and they're looking at subway, buses, transportation, airports, government buildings. Mexico uses Amber Alert. Their Amber Alert is managed out of Europe. They're not getting the satisfaction they were hoping to get. They can't manage their own system. It is managed out of Europe, so it's out of their control, and they're looking to replace that, which bodes well for our solutions and bodes well for SAM. By the way, SAM can be used on bus routes as well. Bus terminals, bus routes, things can happen there as well. So there are many applications for SAM, and we're just starting to roll that out since we've introduced SAM. And yes, it will be applied for a patent. And yes, there is no competition. And we actually have knowledge in writing that both the U.S. and Canadian governments do not have a satisfactory solution to alert their citizens specifically of various disasters or events that could happen that would harm life or destroy property.
Well, Alex,
we're still looking for a solution.
Yeah, well, yeah, that seems to be the issue, at least in the U.S., and I'm sure it is in Canada too. Best of luck to you in Denver. That sounds like that is going to be a huge event for you.
Well, hopefully we can post some of the results. Normally, in many of our negotiations, presentations, etc., we are signed under NDA, and we're asked by our reseller or their client not to release any news until they release it or they feel that it will benefit their needs, because they may or may not be public, and unfortunately we have to submit to their wish, and can't always put out the news we'd love to, but we try.
There you go. Well, Alex Romanoff of iSign, thank you so much for being with us. Wow, what a system, huh? Charlie and Michael, I think you guys hit a home run with this. Yeah, and in a way, 2020 hindsight, right? One wishes that it would have been available in Las Vegas for that concert. So maybe interesting concept too, guys, for pro sports teams. Interesting. Good luck to you at iSign. This is WPSL, Port St. Lucie. WPSL.com, webcaster to the world. The Car Guys, straight ahead.